This is Retirement Keys with Anthony Congemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Anthony provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Keys with your host, Anthony Congemi.
Hello and welcome. This is Anthony Congemi with Retirement Keys. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a great show we put together for you today on retirement planning. Before we get started, I'd like to just thank and welcome our co-host, Mr. Tony Shore. We absolutely could not do this show without Tony. Tony, thank you so much for being with us again this Sunday morning.
Well, great to be here with you on a Sunday morning, and it's always a beautiful morning here in God's country and in New Orleans, right? I love it. I love it here. So good to be here. And Anthony, I know we've got a great show lined up, but first, I want to thank you for having me on the show. We always have fun, and I always manage to learn something despite myself. You're a great teacher, and I know you're here to educate our listeners as well, and we're going to talk about some retirement keys. And I want to tell people first, though, Anthony, how they can get a hold of you. If they have questions throughout the show, they can call after the show and talk to you. Or call and set up a consultation. I know you're offering that complimentary consultation there at Crescent City Retirement. So how do they set up a consultation with you if they have financial questions or retirement questions?
Absolutely. So, we're at crescentcityretirement.com. So certainly you can just pull us up on the web, and there's a great resource for you to schedule an appointment. Call. We, happy to, just chat with you over the phone and answer questions. People have, as you say, all kinds of financial questions about retirement planning. We have an open line for that. And, of course, our number is 504-828-2171. That's 504-828-2171. Just pick up the phone and give our office a call. And we're happy. We have advisors here. You can ask for me specifically, and I'd just love to chat with you. I really enjoy talking to our listeners. I find that they're an educated group. I mean, they go out of their way to really educate themselves on retirement planning and financial planning issues, and it's really a joy talking to our listeners that listen to Retirement Keys. So, by all means, just call our office at 504-828-2171 or look us up at crescentcityretirement.com, and we'll get together and chat.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I think that's really important. I wanted to get that out of the way before we jumped into our topic today, which is really talking about some key steps to a successful retirement. And some key milestones in there, too. There's certain things you need to do at a certain age. But first, I know a lot of people concerned. I saw a news article, Anthony, news item just this past week about OPEC possibly limiting the supply once again of oil to drive up the price and maybe stopping production. Russia and OPEC stopping oil production, which would drive it, they said, as much as $100 a barrel if they do that. And that'll see our gas prices go way up, right?
Yeah, Tony, it will. And so it looks like that, very well may be a reality for us here in the near future.
Yeah.
With these higher oil prices going over $100, and obviously we're going to feel that at the pump. And it really just goes to the bigger, issue of just inflation across the board, with the Feds raising rates as they've done to try to pull inflation back. We know that we've certainly had inflation spikes in the last, 18 months, we've seen, the price of goods and services go up dramatically. I mean, we, see that every day at grocery stores and, and all of the different services that we utilize. And so we know that when we talk about retirement planning and income planning specifically, we're going to feel the effects of inflation and the cost of goods and services going up over time. And so that all has to be considered, Tony. I mean, in order for you to maintain your lifestyle in retirement, obviously your income needs to adjust throughout the years. CPI, cost, price indexes. We want to make sure that our income is keeping up with inflation, and so that's certainly a big a big part of your retirement income plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a big part of it. And I know that's really huge. And retirement income plans, especially as we get closer to retirement, we get more and more concerned about things like inflation. And so that has to be a part of the plan you build in before retirement. And that's one more reason why our listeners need to be working with somebody like you and not trying to go it alone. How much are you going to build in for inflation each year of retirement into your plan as far as how much money you're going to need? And figuring these things out is really a big part of what you do and a big part of what our listeners need to be aware of, isn't it?
It really is, Tony. And it all starts with basically two fundamental questions, I would say, as it relates to retirement income planning. And that is the first question being, the time horizon. When are you going to retire? Are we a year away? Are we 5 years away? Are we 10 years away? So really getting a handle on our time horizon as to when we would transition from our working years to our retirement, to retirement. And so that's going to be the first, key question, as simple as it may sound. When are you going to retire? A simple question, but really quantifying that and determining what that time horizon looks like. That's the first one. The second one, Tony, little bit more complicated, but not really. And that is, how much income, net income, after taxes, federal, state taxes, after insurance, whether it be Medicare or the cost of insurance, after taxes and insurance, how much income, retirement income, kind of mailbox money, if you will, structured income coming in every month, how much income are we going to require in retirement, and not necessarily just to, pay our bills, but also to really enjoy our retirement, the lifestyle, that we are accustomed to or want in retirement. How much income are we going to need? And those are really the two fundamental questions. Everything else builds off of those two questions. When am I going to retire, and how much income am I going to need? And
those
let me
are the
just
big
drill down
questions that people have when they first come to you too, isn't it?
Wait, say that again, Tony. I'm sorry.
I would say those are the two big questions that people have when they first come to you, is it right?
Well,
Or at least they should be asking.
That's right. I mean, we are trying to determine that, and a lot of times people have some ideas about it. I want to retire in a year, or I have, a 5 year, at 65, I want to be retired, or at 62, I want to be retired. So yeah, so a lot of times they know when they'd like to transition out. And then of course we need to know about the income and the lifestyle. And what I would say about that, the rule of thumb, the rule of thumb is 80% of your income in your working years should satisfy your retirement income. Okay. And of course that's a rule of thumb. What I would say is there's primarily three ways that people can go about determining, what are we going to need in retirement, and the first two involve, long, lengthy, budgets, if you will, and expense reports, and looking at, all, how we spend our money and where we spend our money, whether it be, in credit card statements, and doing a lot of accounting, if you will, and budgeting to really drill down, what someone might need in terms of income and retirement. And it could be pretty arduous process, and I'm not so sure it's the most accurate. Frankly, I would say that the best number and the easiest number to come up with, and really probably the most accurate number, is again the simplest way, which is just to look at what you're bringing in now, net, if you will, not the gross number, but the net number. What are you bringing in now? Do you get paid every week? Do you get it paid every 2 weeks? And after insurance, after taxes, after you contribute, let's say, to your 401k or your retirement plan or whatever's coming out of your check, your take-home income now, while you're working, is a really good number to target for retirement. At the end of the day, if it's not 80, if it's 100%, if your retirement plan starts you off at 100% of the net income that you were bringing in when you were working, that's a really good number, because that's the number that you're used to bringing in now. Okay. And so that's really where we like to start. We like to look at, again, what is the time horizon? When do you want to retire? And what are you bringing in now? That net number is the number we like to start with and say, okay, if your retirement income plan provided this same net amount that you're bringing in now, after taxes and insurance, of course, net number, take home, we feel like that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And then, of course, inflation has to be considered. But, nevertheless, that's a good place to start, Tony.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you've got to figure out what your number is. And I think another thing to point out, Anthony, as I listen to you talk about this is so critical. A lot of people don't listen to what your neighbor says or what a coworker tells you or what your brother-in-law did, or some of these, you might see on TV, oh, you need this much money to retire. Well, it's different for everybody.
Oh, absolutely, Tony. Yeah, your number, I think it was a company years ago with that big orange line. I think might have been ING. They used to, advertise,
Yes.
What is your number? What is your number?
Was or ING, yeah.
Yeah. And that was what they were trying to say is, hey, everybody's number is different. What is your number?
Yeah.
And it's a critical number, because it's what, frankly, when you retire, what is the, besides, being retired and having freedom and enjoying your, all of this time that now you have to yourself. But I mean, that's what you gain, of course, but what do you give up?
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing that you give up? And that is what? Your income.
Yep, exactly.
So that, so your retirement income plan has to, take over at that point. And that's why it's so critical. I mean, when we think about a retirement plan, a holistic plan, we think about estate and legacy planning and investments and healthcare and taxes. And it's true that those are very important. But income planning is really the foundation of it all, because that's exactly what you're going to be giving up when you retire, is your income. And so we have to have a well-planned, well-thought-out distribution strategy or income plan that we can transition from our working years to our retirement years. And that's so important, to have the right time frame, the right income dollars coming in. And let me just add, Tony, as we talk about income, let me just say that, income is going to be coming from various sources, right? So maybe there's some, Social Security, maybe you're married, so there's going to be a spousal strategy depending on your age differences and who put in and how much. There's going to be a Social Security strategy in there, even a survivor strategy, because there's always the loss of income due to the death of a spouse. So that's all part of an income plan. But Social Security and planning how you're going to utilize Social Security is a big part. And then you may have a defined benefit plan or some pension money from a company or that you may have worked for. So that's part of it. Maybe there's some annuities, some bond ladders, some structured income. But at the end of the day, how the income sources all work together and how to maximize that income so your income can be all that it can be in the most tax efficient way, okay, is critical. It's critical. And having a retirement plan, a retirement income plan that pulls all the components together, Social Security, annuities, bond ladders, pension money, all together to say, hey, this is what the taxes are going to be. This is what the healthcare costs are going to be. And this is our net income coming in the door, whether the market's up, whether the market's down. This is our structured income. That's a critical aspect of a retirement plan. That's a, core foundational piece of any retirement plan is our retirement income plan.
Well, yeah, and we need to let our listeners out there know how they can get their own plan in place or get a second opinion on their current plan.
Absolutely. So if you are embarking on retirement and you're 3, 5, even up to 10 years away from retirement, you should know where you stand. You should know what trajectory you're on. And that Retirement Income Compass, the program that we use, which is just an unbelievable. I tell you, we couldn't do retirement income planning without the software and the illustration software and the programs that we have available to us. But this Retirement Compass is amazing. It ties it all together. We want to offer that to you, our listener. Just give our office a call, 504-828-2171. Let us provide that Retirement Compass for you. It's very easy to look at. It's very straightforward. I have a special offer. If you do not have a formal retirement income plan and you'd like to see one, take advantage of this offer.
You've been listening to our shows and advice on getting your finances in order and creating a retirement income plan that will last. Now is the time to take advantage of our special offer. This is Anthony Kangemi of Crescent City Retirement Group, and we're now offering a complimentary gourmet dinner and retirement planning workshop, The 5 Keys to a Stress-Free Retirement. This is one workshop you won't want to miss. Call in the next 20 minutes for this no-cost offer. Seating is limited. Call Crescent City Retirement Group within the next 20 minutes at 504-828-2171. That number again is 504-828-2171.
And welcome back to Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Kangemi. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and Anthony, great show so far today. We're talking about some key steps to a successful retirement. And I like how you started the show talking about 2 questions we need to ask is how much money am I going to need in retirement and when am I going to retire? The date and how much are 2 of the biggest questions. And then all the different calculations that go into that and other factors that come into play. So we talked about, I think, having a spending plan early on. We talked mainly about how your number, and there's no magic number. There's no one number that fits everyone. Everybody's number is different.
Correct.
And then I guess the timing of when people retire, everybody's timing is going to be different as well, right?
Yeah, Tony, that's right. And, there's different thresholds in retirement. 59 and a half is a key age. Actually, 55 is the key age in terms of being able to start drawing. People can retire as early as 55 as far as, the timelines that we look at. Then there's a 59 and a half is a key age, 62, 65. Full retirement age of Social Security could be up to 67. Then at age 73, there's required distributions. So all through these timelines, there's different benchmarks or thresholds that are so important. As it relates to your retirement plan, your retirement income plan, just as a quick example of this, we all know that, we get to a certain age and there is what's called RMDs, or required minimum distributions. So all of our pre-tax dollars at some point it's going to be mandatory that we start taking out a percentage, right? So in our retirement income plan, let's say I retire at 65, I want to make sure that my distribution strategy, because I'm going to have to pay taxes on this money. So I want to make sure that my distribution strategy is such to where when all of my retirement money is now subject to required minimum distributions, right, RMDs, that all of a sudden the income doesn't spike way up, because then potentially I will be paying a lot more in taxes on that money versus taking distributions on that money appropriately, that distribution strategy, if you will, where we can maintain tax brackets and not be jumping into higher brackets just by default. Tony, the distribution strategy isn't just for the year you retire. It's throughout the whole course of retirement.
Right.
And so we want to be tax efficient. We want to have an appropriate distribution strategy. We want to utilize Social Security in the best way. We want to consider the surviving spouse because we know we're going to have a loss of income due to the death of a spouse. And unfortunately, they don't treat single filers as well as they treat married filing joint. And so in terms of deductions and everything else, and even brackets. So your distribution strategy and your tax strategy is critical as it relates to retirement. And let me just say, there's really only two reasons people retire. They either want to or they have to. Either they have this plan, like we said earlier, Tony, okay, in 3 years I want to retire, in 5 years, and they want to retire, they're ready to retire, and they're ready to transition, and it goes that way. And people say, well, hey, we're going to get all our ducks in a row. And so I would just, ask our listeners, what are those ducks? What if we say we want to have all of our ducks in a row, or we want to have all of the bases covered, right? What are those bases? What are those, ducks in a row? And I would submit to our listeners that there's really 5 key areas that have to be addressed. And I know you're driving, so I'm not going to say write them down, but look on our website, and they're right there on the website. But the 5 keys are these: estate and legacy planning, how things are going to pass on to your heirs, right? Spouse, kids, grandkids. So estate and legacy planning. Healthcare obviously is important. Investments, or an investment strategy, is important. Income planning, which we spent most of this show talking about, that structured income, which I would suggest that it's really the foundation of any retirement plan, your income plan, and taxes, being tax efficient. But I would submit to our listeners that if you have those 5 key areas addressed, estate and legacy, healthcare, investments, income, and taxes, you've got a pretty well thought out retirement plan.
Yeah.
There's not a lot missing there. And that's what our plans encompass. I mean, we really focus in these 5 areas. We don't do a lot of other things now. I mean, this is kind of our wheelhouse in these 5 key areas. And I would say that everybody's, the 5 key areas are very universal, but they look different depending on our clients, right? Sure. I mean, some people are, been married, second marriage. They might have a different estate plan, kids from a previous marriage. So that's going to look a little different, presumably. So, but in some form or fashion, these 5 key areas are gonna be a part of all of our overall retirement plan. And if any one of these areas are out of alignment, because they all work together, they really do. It's very holistic. They all work together. And if these areas are supporting each other, you can look at a retirement plan that looks, just 100 times more efficient and more, than these areas not working in harmony and then just pulling against each other. And so I would just encourage our listeners, you have all of the pieces. They just need to be focused and put together where we can really let one piece enhance the other piece. And you'd be surprised. A lot of times, Tony, we talk to people that come in and they have, the old 401k and the old IRA, and they got the current and then the spouse and then the Social Security. They have everything all around and scattered around, but when they start seeing it in an overall plan and see how all of these pieces actually complement each other, you'd be surprised at how a retirement plan that may have not looked like much in the beginning really starts to shape up when you really leverage and utilize the pieces appropriately.
Right. Yeah, that is critical. And we're out of time for today's show, but it's been a great one, Anthony. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Congemi. Thank you for listening to Retirement Keys. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, please contact Anthony Congemi at Crescent City Retirement Group. Call 504-828-2171 or visit the website at crescentcityretirement.com. All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Anthony Congemi and Crescent City Retirement Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.